Welcome to Twistem TV, where reality bends, secrets surface, and nothing is what it seems. I'm your narrator, your guide through the strange and the unsettling. And today I have a new story to tell. She just wanted to teach. But within a few months, she became the target of rumors, threats, and was fired as if she were a danger to her own students. What happened inside Aurora Institute is more than just a school. Scandal. It's a web of silence, manipulation, and character assassination. This is Claudia's story, and she was almost erased. Claudia Menezes arrived in São Paulo on a cloudy March afternoon. She carried 2 suitcases, a guitar, and a hope barely contained in her chest. At 29, after 7 years teaching in public schools in the interior of Paraná, she had finally landed a position at one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the country, the Aurora Institute. The salary was 4 times higher. The promise of pedagogical freedom sounded like a dream. The school building was impressive, a mirrored glass facade, vertical gardens, classrooms with colorful beanbags and digital whiteboards. Here we don't educate for entrance exams, we educate for life. Read the banners inside. Claudia felt inspired. At last she could teach literature the way she had always imagined, with poetry, cinema, creative writing, and philosophical discussions. On her first day, she was greeted by Mauricio Brandão, the principal, an elegant man, with a soft voice and eyes that seemed to see right through your intentions. Claudia, your profile is perfect for what we're looking for. Young, engaged, innovative. We're happy to have you here, he said, shaking her hand with a trained smile. In the teacher's lounge, she was introduced to Renato Nobrega, the chemistry teacher. He gave her a sideways glance. Another one of those affection-driven educators? Let's see how long you last. Claudia ignored the tone. She preferred to believe it was just resistance to change. The first weeks were euphoric. Her students responded well, especially Julia Sampaio, a shy girl with bright eyes and powerful writing. Claudia saw in her a reflection of her 17-year-old self. But in time, the cracks appeared. She began to notice students being publicly humiliated for minor mistakes. Julia, for instance, was ridiculed by Renato after making an error in front of the class. Claudia tried to talk to him in the hallway. Renato, maybe you were a little too harsh on her, and maybe you should stick to your own subject, rookie, he replied, curt. The following week, an anonymous note appeared on her desk. They smile to your face and devour you behind your back. Watch what you say. Claudia tried to brush it off. But the coordinator's polite smiles, Mauricio's calculated coldness, and the silence of older colleagues began to weigh on her. One day she found Deborah, the cleaning lady, in the courtyard. Teacher, can I say something? Be careful. People here are worse than politicians. And when they set their sights on someone, that's when Claudia understood. The Aurora Institute was a place where appearances were sacred, and anyone who threatened the facade was disposable. But she still had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. Claudia began to see the environment through different eyes. The students' comments, once scattered, now made sense. Remarks like, "There's no point in complaining," or "better not get involved," began to sound like veiled warnings. She tried to ignore the growing tension, focusing on her classes. But Julia's situation continued to bother her. The once engaged girl had become withdrawn, avoided eye contact, and turned in increasingly apathetic assignments. After one class, Claudia gently called her aside. "Julia, is everything okay?" The girl hesitated. "It's nothing, just tiredness." That same night, Claudia received an email from the academic coordinator stating that it is not the teacher's role to interfere in students' emotional issues without authorization from their guardians. The message was cold, as if it carried an invisible warning. A few days later, another student, Enzo, confided in her in the hallway. "Teacher, you haven't seen anything. Renato yelled at me in the coordinator's office because my dad complained about my grade. He said if I didn't back off, he'd fail me." Claudia was stunned. "Did you speak to anyone at the school?" "My mom tried. The coordinator said she would look into it. After that, my grade dropped." Coincidence? The teacher took notes. She decided to gather the students' testimonies discreetly, asking permission to record their stories. Some stayed silent, others opened up. A pattern began to emerge: psychological abuse, persecution, and manipulation of grades. Claudia knew she had to act. She sent an email to the Human Resources Department with a summary of the complaints, requesting a confidential meeting. The reply came the same day. "Thank you for your concern, Claudia. We will review the reports carefully. In the meantime, we ask for discretion to preserve the well-being of those involved. It sounded appropriate, but the tone was the same she'd heard before in another life, when a friend reported an abusive boss and was transferred to a parallel project until she eventually resigned. The following week, her institutional email password was changed without notice. On the internal bulletin board, a new code of conduct was posted, highlighting the excerpt. It is forbidden to use the school environment to collect testimonies, record conversations, or spread interpersonal conflicts without prior authorization. Claudia felt the world spin. She was being silenced. Deborah, the cleaning lady, approached her discreetly. They always do this. They isolate you, plant things. Stay alert. You're being watched. The next morning, Claudia arrived at school and found her photo, discreetly taped, inside the teacher's lounge. Above it, someone had written in red marker, "Idealists fall first." Claudia was still trembling as she left the teacher's lounge. The phrase "idealists fall first" throbbed in her mind. It had been written with hatred and with familiarity. This wasn't an impulsive attack. It was part of something bigger, calculated. She tried to act normal, but her colleagues' looks had changed. Some avoided her. Others watched her as if she were a mistake waiting to be corrected. Renato, in particular, seemed pleased. "Good morning, teacher. Sleep well?" he asked with a mocking smile, sipping his coffee. In the next class, Julia showed up with puffy eyes. Claudia tried to speak with her, but the girl just shook her head and murmured, "My mom told me not to talk to you anymore." "Why?" "They said you're making things up, that you're trying to harm the school." Claudia felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. At the end of the day, she received a formal notice. She was suspended for behavior incompatible with institutional values. The document was signed by Mauricio and the school's legal department. She returned to her small apartment in Perdizes as if in a daze. She called her sister, cried, then tried to organize the files she had gathered, student testimonies, screenshots of messages, meeting records. There was still a glimmer of hope. If she went to the press, or to the Ministry of Education, maybe. But that same night, something even stranger happened. Her personal email account was hacked. Fake messages had been sent from her address to colleagues, filled with insults and threats. One of them read, "Renato, you're going to pay for everything you did. This isn't over. Get ready." By the next morning, the scandal had spread through the school's WhatsApp groups. Claudia tried to explain. No one believed her. HR sent a message to the parents, informing them that teacher Claudia Menezes had been permanently dismissed for behavior incompatible with the school environment. She was terminated without a chance to defend herself. And worse, she now carried the label of someone unstable and dangerous. Deborah met her secretly at a cafe near the school. They have a department no one knows about, strategic communication. It's on the top floor, locked. Inside, they erase evidence, fabricate messages, clean up everything for the press and the parents. You saw that? I saw the coordinator's son. He works there. A kid from IT. He spends all day messing with other people's files, listens to conversations, clones emails, makes stuff up. That's a crime. Of course it is. But who's going to prove it? Claudia swallowed hard. And the parents? Do they believe it? They just want report cards with good grades and pretty photos on Instagram. And the school gives them that. That night, Claudia looked at her reflection in the mirror and understood the Aurora Institute wasn't a school. It was a facade, an image factory. And now she was an unwanted file that needed to be deleted. In the days that followed, Claudia lived like a shadow. She avoided social media, blocked unknown numbers on her phone, and stopped answering private calls. She watched silently as her name became a stain in the educational world. A school gossip blog published a piece titled, "Unstable Teacher Spreads Rumors and Threatens Colleagues." No byline, no source, but hundreds of comments. The article claimed she exhibited emotionally unstable behavior and got close to vulnerable female students with questionable intentions. A veiled, filthy, and deadly accusation. It was Julia who warned her through a fake profile. "It wasn't me, teacher, I swear. They're saying you tried to manipulate me. I can't do anything. I'm sorry." Claudia felt her stomach twist. She cried until her throat hurt. She looked for lawyers. Those brave enough to go against the school demanded fees she couldn't afford. The more affordable ones said it wasn't worth the fight. They can bury you in lawsuits until you disappear. But Deborah appeared again. I managed to get a flash drive with copies of emails and conversations. The people upstairs deleted. There's heavy stuff, including things between Renato and the administration. Claudia hugged her. Do you have any idea what you're doing? I do. I'm clearing my conscience. The contents were explosive. There were messages exchanged between Director Mauricio and Renato, mocking students, ridiculing parents, deciding who would be failed to maintain statistical balance. One message read, "If Claudia opens her mouth, we'll destabilize her. She already looks fragile. A dose of paranoia and she'll destroy herself." Claudia cried reading that. Not from fear, but from fury. That same day, she created an anonymous profile on X, formerly Twitter, where she began posting fragments of the emails. With dates, timestamps, and names hidden, the posts quickly went viral. Many doubted it, of course, but others, former students, ex-employees, even a former coordinator, who had been fired years ago, began confirming the stories. It's real. Aurora is a stage, always has been. In less than a week, Claudia was identified as the profile's author. Independent media outlets began reaching out. She gave an interview, with distorted voice and face covered, to a whistleblower channel on YouTube. But then came the blow. Julia's father, a state congressman and school financier, filed a defamation lawsuit, demanding immediate removal of the posts and the blocking of the account. The case included doctored screenshots of conversations Claudia had never had. The court granted an injunction. The profile was taken down, the video deleted, the files discredited. It seemed like the end, but Claudia was no longer the same woman, who had arrived with heavy suitcases and starry eyes. She looked out at the city and thought, "You're not going to erase me." Claudia spent days without leaving the house. She barely ate, avoided mirrors, and dreamed of dark school hallways where voices mocked her. In her dreams, the lights would go out, and she'd be left alone in the depths of an infinite courtyard. But then something unexpected happened. An email. Sender, Leticia C., investigative journalist at Revista Relato, specialized in exposing misconduct in educational institutions. Subject, your case might not be the only one. Message, I've been investigating Instituto Aurora for 2 years. Your name has come up in more than one account. I'd like to talk. You're not alone. Claudia cried as she read those words. The interview took place discreetly, in a quiet bakery in the Aclimason neighborhood. Claudia handed over copies of everything, the flash drive, emails, screenshots, student testimonies. Leticia listened carefully, taking handwritten notes. If what you're saying checks out, Claudia, this isn't just a scandal. It's a network of institutional cover-up. Are you really going to publish knowing how powerful they are? Exactly because of that. And you. Are you willing to show your name and face? Claudia hesitated, then took a deep breath. Yes. The article was published 2 weeks later. The School of Silence, Harassment, Manipulation, and Evidence Tampering at Instituto Aurora. It included testimonies from former staff, message screenshots, internal documents detailing image review protocols, the use of dossiers against critical teachers, and even anonymous accounts from 2 students confirming the psychological terror. The response was immediate. Headlines erupted, influencers commented. Former employees formed groups to share their experiences. Julia, now 17, finally spoke out. She posted an emotional video saying, Ms. Claudia was the only person who saw me, and I was too afraid to stand by her. But I won't stay silent anymore. That was the spark. The school released an official statement denying everything, calling the article a coordinated attack. But the damage was done. The Child Protection Bureau opened an inquiry. So did the Educational Public Prosecutor's Office. Some teachers requested leave. Director Mauricio deleted his social media accounts and vanished for weeks. One day, Claudia received a call from the Ministry of Education. They wanted to invite her to join a task force on mental health and harassment in private institutions. She hung up in silence. Then she looked over at the guitar resting against the wall, the same one she had brought in her suitcase on her first day in São Paulo. And finally, after months, she played a song. The first note came out trembling, but the second steady, and the third rang out, pulsing with the strength of someone who had been crushed and chose not to be silenced. 1 year later, Instituto Aurora was still operating, but it was never the same. The facade remained beautiful, the vertical garden green, the hallways gleaming with wax. But inside there were cracks. The new administration promised transparency and well-being, while internal memos circulated quietly, warning teachers to avoid sensitive topics in class. The investigation into the abuses was still ongoing, now under court seal. Mauricio Brandão was facing multiple lawsuits. Renato Nóbrega had left teaching and, according to rumors, was living in Portugal. The press, which once spoke so much about Claudia, now only mentioned the case occasionally, with lukewarm headlines. But the memory, that never disappeared. Claudia returned to teaching at a smaller school in the southern part of the city, with open windows and chalk in hand. She earned less than half of what she used to, but she slept peacefully. Sometimes fear still crept in. The sound of an unexpected notification, the echo in a hallway, a phone ringing mid-afternoon. But she had survived. She created a short video channel called Voices from Room 12, where she read, with permission, stories from former students about oppression, fear, and resilience in the school environment. The channel grew slowly but steadily. Comments read, "School is not a neutral place. Thank you for refusing to be silent. I'm a teacher and lived through something similar. Now I feel less alone." Julia enrolled in psychology school. She sent messages from time to time. Deborah, now a cleaner at a public school, said she had started studying at night. Leticia received an investigative journalism award for the story. And Claudia? She kept going. With her lessons, her music, her books. At a lecture, someone asked her, "Professor, if you could go back in time, would you have done anything differently?" She smiled. "I would have done it sooner." Claudia chose not to stay silent. And every time this story is told, a piece of the truth survives. If you believe schools should protect, not persecute, share this video. Leave a comment. Tag someone. Because silence protects the guilty. But a voice, when it echoes, can change everything.